clinical psychologist, I have long been convinced of the power of the therapeutic or clinical setting, both for myself and for my patients. By defining a day, an hour, a physical space together with its contents, all as fixed, certain, and expected, we can better weather and manage all the storms that will inevitably rage and the unexpected that will surprise. Both therapist and patient find comfort and stability in the fixed physical setting of the session. The armchair in its set corner with its familiar softness, the painting on the wall, the table with its water glass and scratched left corner, the toys and games, sounds and smells that are noticed only if altered. These elements create a frame, a type of container, into which can be thrown a mix of raw material and ingredients that can be safely combined, processed, and decoded in various different ways. With increased frequency, even from 1 meeting to 2 meetings a week, comes greater depth, insight, and change. In my mind, I have often compared Yomi learning to a particularly rigorous psychoanalysis with obvious differences. I say rigorous because even Freud did not consistently meet with his patients 7 days a week. Yomi learning with Rabbanit Michelle has provided and continues to provide us learners with something fixed and constant for the past 3 years and 10 months, a set daily hour with a familiar face via screen or voice via podcast. We learn in our kitchens, on our sofas, by our dining room tables, in the local fields while walking our dogs, in our cars while commuting or during plane travel, each learner creating for herself a physical space or setting from which she can most effectively maintain the rigors of Yomi learning. Over time, the repetition and the consistency of the setting and its familiar rhythm becomes associated with a sense of safety, of certainty, of something that proves itself able to withstand life's many obstacles. No matter what we will hear, today's daf we are learning is. Within the safety of this framework, we read, translate, and interpret the text, the material. While the words are written, there are countless ways to analyze them and make them comprehensible and digestible. Betty Joseph, a well-published British psychoanalyst, writes that the whole setting should provide an environment in which the therapist can think and feel freely, and thus be able to observe what comes from the child and what is stirred up in him or herself. Within the safety of the Yomi framework, we might allow ourselves to feel stirred in multiple different ways, moved, awed, frustrated, confused, sometimes angered by a particular rabbinical response or agadah. We might allow our minds to wander and be curious by unexpected associations that appear. Sometimes we will gratefully embrace the intellectual rigor to block out whatever internal or external storms are raging. Within the safety of the Yomi framework, these movements can freely occur without judgment and without fear of repercussion. Thanks to its frequency, we can pick up each morning exactly where we ended just the day before. The material remains fresh, and our relationship with the daf, with its contents, and with Rabbanit Michelle and Hadran community continues to evolve without interruption. It is no wonder that Rabbanit Michelle has received so many words of thanks from her learners for the network of safety provided by Yomi during this incredibly traumatic period, defined by danger, threat, loss, and worry, prompting her to ask me to relate to this theme from a professional and personal perspective. When we feel attacked in any way, we turn to the safety nets that are most familiar to us in order to manage. We hunker down at home and stay close to our families. We lean into the elements in our lives that both fortify us and calm us. Sometimes we have to take time to define what these elements might be and then access them. Elements that need to allow us the freedom to move between feelings of despair and hope, sadness and joy, fear and bravery. During this period of time, my own child patients are preoccupied with building fortresses out of blankets and pillows draped over chairs, small plastiline caves for their creations, and reorganizing and making space in their often overflowing cardboard boxes filled with their work. And we Hadran learners also have the daf, our own daily Bet Midrash, our own personal fortress, no matter what. In our Masechet Daf Ayin Bet, we read of Rebbe's, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi's prophecies whilst on his deathbed. Hayom nolad Rabbi Yehuda, שאין צדיק נפטר מן העולם, עד שנברא צדיק כמותו שנאמר, וזרח השמש ובא השמש. As Rebbe was dying, Rav Yehuda was born, ensuring that the world would not be left without a righteous leader for even a moment. I thought back to the powerful scene around Rebbe's deathbed as described in Masechet Ketubot, his students feverishly praying around the clock so as to keep him alive, even while he was suffering. Here, he sends them a message of hope. By ensuring his students that they and their future generations will not be left alone, that great leaders are being born even while others are dying, perhaps Rebbe was trying to give them the courage to let him go. He was perhaps trying to give them a lifeline in their moment of fear and darkness as they sat by their great dying leader. In addition, in our Masechet, the message of light and hope, V'zarach HaShemesh u'ba HaShemesh, is offered to us in the midst of pages of discussions about disqualified people for marriage, including Rebbe's own prophecies of the different disqualified communities, material hard to digest, especially during a time where we desperately need unity, compassion, and inclusion, not judgment and exclusion. I was just about to ready my etrogim for pelting when we were thrown this ray of light, triggering thoughts and feelings that tempered the anger and the confusion. And of course, what better words to read in the midst of our time of darkness, where we might sometimes forget to trust that the sun will always rise no matter what. And it is my hope that we all find ways to create rays of light, lifelines, safety nets, even if occasionally fleeting, to see us through these deeply challenging times.